Oh, we're live now. Okay. So, welcome everyone. Welcome back. This is a double header. I just chatted with Tom Takigayama for about an hour about his experience in transitioning from a director level role at JustWorks over to a principal level design role. So it's really interesting how you go from managerial to IC roles. I learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot too. We will also raise some money during that episode, and we're currently at almost $20,000. So super exciting, only $230 away from the $20,000 mark. We started at 69 donations and we're now 178 donations. So over 100 donations driven by designers across the world. Thank you all so much. I know this has been a really tough time for a lot of folks with layoffs and just like how difficult the job market is. But, just seeing people coming together, sparing whatever money they have to help other families in LA and Altadena get back on their feet after losing their homes, losing everything. It's just been so inspirational. I am filled with gratitude. Thank you, everyone. It means a lot. So I just want to thank some of the recent donors. We have Lester G and Anonymous, as well as Audrey B, Kartik Gupta, and Maria Torres. Thank you all for donating. Every dollar counts. If you enjoyed this episode or last episode, we have a suggested donation. We have $25. If we always welcome more. So if you're able to donate a little bit more, appreciate that. If you can't, any less is totally appreciated too. If you can't donate at all, which totally understand given the market, please share this link, this post, get more eyeballs, get more engagement. That's always awesome to us. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm here with Sera Tajima today, and she's awesome. She's into climate conscious design. She used to be a growth designer at Webflow for several years, and she's awesome. She also has a podcast I was on a while back. We talk about Asian Americans in design, and she has a LinkedIn profile, and now she's even on Xiaohongshu, aka Red Note, where she is extremely popular. I hope for the right reasons, but uh, lots of jokes about Chinese social media in this call for sure. But Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, how you got here?
Yes, absolutely. Before I do that, thank you so much for hosting this hang. And it's a great idea. I'm really happy to see it and all the contributions that have been made. This is huge. And, whether it's $100 or $1, every donation that you make counts. So don't think that you need to donate a really large sum. Anything helps. And I also wonder, by the way, if you have advice for people who maybe don't have the money right now to donate, but perhaps they can send clothes or some sort of items that are in demand.
So yeah, absolutely. I think there's always a lot of need for these supplies. Getting to LA might be a little bit difficult, but I highly recommend that you reach out to folks like Lex Roman and also Jillian Wu on LinkedIn. They're helping coordinate a lot of these things. And um, let me also look for those links because I've been so focused on GoFundMe in the last few days. I
Yeah,
haven't gathered these links as well. So let me check back on that. And that's a really great idea, Sarah. I'm
thank
just
you.
so, yeah, I have not been
Yeah,
as organized as I would like.
no, this is an incredible effort and very demanding. So thank you very much for talking again for another hour with me. So to those who don't know me, I'm Sera Tajima. Started out as a product designer and then, wanted to really think about what kind of impact I wanted to have on the planet. So I decided to move more into how do we integrate sustainability into our design work and how do we really think about the impact that technology has. And so that's kind of been my journey for the last year, transitioning from just really being product design and UX focused to more how do we think about the impact as we move through creating the software technology and even the hardware technology. So, not an expert by any means in climate or in hardware, but in the past year, because I've been thinking about how do I personally have an impact as an individual, I've started investing in early stage climate tech startups. And as a result of that, I've been learning a ton about hardware and different technologies that I am not an expert in. And that's been really exciting. One of the latest things I invested in is actually fabrics made of mushroom fungi and algae. Yeah, so really interesting application there. But it's great to see, right? Because most of the clothes that we buy today are plastic, they're polyester. So I'm, yeah, really excited for this developing space. So many different things, light driven photocatalysis, different applications. And it's been a really great journey. And I've been very excited to see the design community kind of come along because when I got started, I felt like shouting into the void on LinkedIn. Like I don't know, you don't see too many people talking about sustainability in the design community or
No.
even this kind of conscious technology aspect. So it's been a really nice journey to get to know more people in the space, to make some really awesome design friends. I just so I just came back to Maui last night, and I was in Oahu for the past few days. And we did a great talk at the University of Hawaii Manoa at their business school, PACE. It's the Pacific Asian Center for Entrepreneurship. And so there we did a talk on technology for a sustainable future. And it was incredible just to see how excited people got. And they're not even necessarily designers, it's like just people kind of interested in entrepreneurship or creating their own startup.
Do you feel like Hawaiians are more environmentally conscious than the rest of the American population?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Actually, this is so. My mom came with me to the event because we traveled together, and so she was my photographer. But we had this conversation after the event because in Hawaii, I think people are so much more connected to the land, and they're it's a bit more natural here. Like the environment is more natural. It's less developed. It's less sort of man-made, and so I think we have that direct connection to nature, and it's a really big part of Hawaiian culture to like malama, take care of the land.
I appreciate that. I feel like we're just so disconnected from our environment at this point, especially me
Yeah,
living in New York City. We just see concrete
yeah,
everywhere, especially during the winter. So I forget, there's the ocean, even though I live next to the ocean. It's just so
yeah,
polluted.
yeah.
But do you see Alexis O's post recently about the environmental impact of TikTok?
I did not, but I'm sure it
So
has one.
yeah, yeah, it was fascinating, and there's
Yeah.
all this like political aspects around TikTok's ban, but just the environmental aspect was pretty interesting as well. I think she first heard about it from the Rosenfeld. I don't say, oh God, what's that thing they were running on
I know. Yeah,
environmentalism?
Rosenfield. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really interesting to me. Like we hadn't really considered that. We've all just been so obsessed over the political aspects of TikTok. So.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what are you doing now these days besides the environmental aspects? Like, are you still working in design? Are you still focused on this area?
Yeah, good question. If I could just add to that thought, video does have a big environmental impact. And so the average website is about 2 MB, but I've had clients that were at like 13 and they were in the climate space and had no idea that their website was contributing so much, emissions.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting to think about if you kind of optimize your video or have less video and go for illustrations and things like that, your website will consume less essentially. But AI in particular has a really big impact on the environment, as I'm sure Hang, but we can talk about that a little bit more. So, side points. What am I up to now? I am still working, like doing advising. And what's been interesting about that is that I started out wanting to focus on product design for, early stage startups in the climate tech space. But you, I think Chris and I had a really good conversation about this, and I just reposted his episode on my podcast because it was one of the most popular. But he talks about understanding the customer's perspective and how they perceive things, what they value, and the language that they use. And we've similarly talked about this, but when you're dealing with really early stage startups, they don't really understand end-to-end design or product design. They really see it as like sort of the end visual aspect. And so they
Yeah.
don't understand like the strategy, the development, the research, the talking to customers, the like attempt to do all of this in an unbiased way. And so I think when it came to dealing with these companies that are less involved in SaaS, because a lot of them start with hardware in the climate space, it's more about they see what I do as sort of product management. So that's been like an interesting shift for me in terms of how I talk about what I do. It's like, yes, I can sort of do product management and product design, and I'm just doing it all at the same time.
So how do you repackage that? How do you communicate this in a way that's both authentic to your experience and what you want to do for your
Yeah.
business with the needs of the customers?
Yeah, so it came about really organically, I think, because initially, of course, I would describe myself as a product designer, and now I've kind of shifted
Right.
more towards the language of like just a startup advisor for early
Mm.
stage, specialized in growth and design. And that's also sort of the content that I'm putting out now is very much focused on my growth hacking expertise and background. And that really does extend. I mean, I think design is a huge part of growth, right? And that's not often acknowledged because people, when they hear growth hacking, kind of think of like marketing or acquisition and not end-to-end product design. So I think there's that aspect of it.
I see.
Did you have a question about that?
Yeah, listen, you could if we get into the pigeonhole of like what is growth design, I'll have like
Yeah.
an hour worth of questions because I know
Okay.
nothing about growth design at this point. But
Yeah.
I'm also kind of curious, like, you're running a successful consultancy as a
Yeah.
advisor to startups, and I
Hmm.
feel like a lot of designers nowadays are struggling with this aspect because they've
Yeah.
either been laid off or the job market is really tough, and they're considering going off on their own and trying to find clients that way. And
Yeah.
I think most people see content creation as a possibility for them, but they also don't really want to invest the kind of time, energy, and the risk of putting themselves out there and being, seen and judged by other folks. Like, what
Hmm.
are some ways that what have been effective for you to find
Yeah.
and land new clients aside from social media?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot to unpack there because building a business is the most extreme form of taking a bet on yourself, right? And in order to do that, you need to have a certain level of confidence. But I also think that confidence and trust in yourself and your ability is built through consistent action. So it's like, how do you keep taking actions and showing up and honoring the commitment that you've made to yourself in order to also build confidence and not just expect to have it on day one? Like, that's just not going to happen, right? It's like you have to go through all of the hard things, taking all of the baby steps in order to build it. But I can't really speak for everyone because I did have a pretty significant LinkedIn presence. Like now I'm at 18,000, so it wasn't that big, but I had people following me on LinkedIn and I was already doing the crafts YouTube, which recently got deleted, but that had like 13,000 people.
What?
Yeah.
What
Didn't we
happened?
talk about this?
No, we.
YouTube deleted it. Yeah, I was just in the process of shifting over the new podcast to the craft because I was like, well, if the craft has way more followers, I'm just going to merge the content onto the craft. But in doing that, I went to check my accounts and I wanted to get the at Sera Tajima handle. So I was like looking at my YouTube accounts and they had removed the crafts account completely. It just got deleted. And I've reached out to support twice and nobody responded. And I posted about it on LinkedIn, no response. So the crafts account is totally gone.
Was it a user error, or was it just like a bug, or was it just like poor design that led to a user error?
I think it was a technical issue because I didn't like at any point I didn't confirm or say that I wanted to delete that account and I was in a different YouTube account as I was doing things.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean? So the email address was completely separate. So I don't know what happened, but it also happened on Friday the 13th. So
that's so unfortunate. That's one of my
yeah.
greatest fears because like we can invest hundreds or thousands of hours of our lives into a social media account, and technically we don't own it at all. So anything
Yeah.
can happen. So I'm really sorry that happened to you. That's super unfortunate. I would be just like messaging YouTube over and over and over again until they
Yeah.
relent. I would just be outside their headquarters with a sign.
Yeah, so I mean, it's okay at the end of the day. Like, the crafts account was really geared towards early, like that content was still valuable, but it wasn't geared towards the kind of thing that I'm focused on right now. So I think at the end of the day, just kind of cut my losses.
Yeah. What
But
do
we
you?
got totally sidetracked from. Sorry, I don't think I
No,
actually answered what your question was.
I don't remember my question, but I'm actually really curious what you like because you've done several pivots. I don't even want to say a
Oh,
pivot because they're like transformations, right? They're kind of getting to the
yes.
core of who you are as a person and what kind
Yeah.
of business and value that are important to you. So, where do you see this taking you next several months?
Yeah, good question. And I do remember the conversation, so I'm just going to tie that back in. But the way that I got started with consulting was,
Oh, yeah,
uh,
that's my question.
yeah, I had companies reach out to me through LinkedIn directly to ask me to do consulting with them.
Yeah.
And after going through a few rounds of evaluating them, I decided that I wanted to work with one in particular that I was really excited about in the mental health space. And so that was really awesome because my dad had actually just passed away and it was like a really interesting and enriching experience because I got to talk to and research with a lot of really incredible people on that platform who, had like degrees in psychology or business or peak performance, even like sleep scientists. So they had a really interesting group of experts, and I got to do that and really like dive a bit more into the space as I was starting therapy for the first time, which was also like just a really great blend. So that's how I got started. But for people who don't want to create content, the friend that I just did this UH talk with does consulting, and he does not do social media at all. So it is possible, right? It's like you just kind of have to work your connections through already having built and established yourself as a product designer. So if you're just getting started in product design and you want to immediately go into consulting, I think that would be a lot harder than someone who already has, let's say, worked at Shopify, for example, or worked at Webflow.
I see. So,
Yeah.
do you feel like your content strategy has changed as well? And how do you see it changing next few months? Because it's no, I'm not tying it back into red. No, I'm just I'm legit curious.
People want us to call it Xiaohongshu.
Pretty good. The accents are excellent. I saw
So thank you.
I saw a Chinese guy with a Texan accent on it earlier, and I was like, this is pretty entertaining. This is growing on me.
It's so funny to see everyone. Duolingo has been on there for a while, so they're like ahead of the game. But yeah, everyone is now trying to learn Mandarin for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, sidetracked from your question. So one of the things you wanted to know what's coming in the next few months, and also
Yeah.
how my content strategy has changed.
Yeah.
So when I started, I get so many questions about creating content, and I see so many people struggle with this, and you just kind of have to suck it up and post something and know that it's not going to be good in the beginning. Like my
Yeah.
content in the beginning was so awkward because I was so awkward in front of a camera because it's, when you're filming yourself, if that's the type of content you want to do, it's really uncomfortable in the beginning to talk to an inanimate object. And
Yeah.
once you start building your audience, you get comfortable with, oh, these people comment and like I talk to them in my DMs. So this is who I'm imagining as I'm talking, kind of.
Yeah.
And you're able to just get a little bit more natural with it. But even when it comes to LinkedIn, like I really enjoy writing. I think I've always been a better writer than anything else, like even as a kid. And that's why the platform really resonated with me. I will also say it's nice not to have like a lot of attention on like the way you look instead of the content that you produce. So that's also why I love LinkedIn. But when I started LinkedIn, my content was also not great. And so I think I've gotten a lot better at now figuring out like what kind of content is super relevant to the kinds of, like, you think as LinkedIn as top of the funnel, right? So it's like LinkedIn is your capture into the type of audience that you want to attract for the different things that you do. So if designers are interested in learning about growth, or companies want to work with me and understand design better, then those are the kind of people that I want to attract. And it's gotten a lot more strategic. And I think hopefully that I've gotten a lot better at kind of writing LinkedIn content that resonates with people based
Hmm.
on like the first sentence, right? That's so important. The way that you attract people with that hook, having things that give a lot of value upfront but are not lengthy. Like if you're writing paragraphs on LinkedIn, people are just not going to read that, right?
Right.
Unless you have an incredible following and they really love you. But yeah, it's all about like making sure that you know who you're talking to and that you're being very clear with them, and that either you're giving them value up front, or you're sending them a PDF or a course or whatever it is. So
Yeah. It's so tricky, and I feel like I cannot claim to understand what it's like to be judged based on how you look on social
yeah,
media. I feel like
I'm
I have the
judging you. Hang no.
I have the privilege. I'm just a random Asian dude on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. And no, actually, there's a lot of privilege there. I think, especially as an IC, like I felt like, and we talked about this before, just
Hmm.
people assume that I'm pretty decent at whatever it is that I do as an Asian
Mm.
man. But I think that definitely transfers over on
I
LinkedIn
mean,
as well.
you're good at math, right?
I flunked a bunch of math courses, so no, I'm
I think
actually,
we spoke about that.
yeah, I'm much better at writing, which is fortunate for LinkedIn, so I'm okay with
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but
I don't mean to interrupt you, Hang,
yeah.
but the GoFundMe is like blocking a part of your face.
I know. I'm like
Is that
slouching
like
into my
fixed there?
yeah, it's fixed there. So
Okay,
I just
okay.
need to like sit up straight and I'm just like by hour 4 or 5, I'm just like slinking down my chair. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I get it.
yeah. But I I feel so badly for you about the YouTube channel, but I feel like you're
Oh,
definitely gonna bounce back with your content on other platforms as well. So
thank you. Yeah, don't worry about it. I don't feel bad about it. I was kind of like, is that your dog in the background?
oh, he's right under me.
Oh,
So he's like, sorry, I probably gotta mute him.
yeah. So, let me just continue the conversation then while he comes down. But yeah, I definitely get that because if the mailman comes, my dog will be barking in the background, and because he's a dachshund, he's really small. Like he probably weighs about 14 pounds, but his bark is so loud it really freaks people out, so they get scared if they don't see him coming.
Oh yeah, same,
Yeah.
same.
So content for the next few years, I think, or actually, let's talk about the next few months, right? Because that's what you asked.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get better, honestly. It's a continuous effort. Like that is the path of mastery, right? You never achieve that line of perfection. You're just continuously getting closer and closer and closer. So yeah, the goal is really to make sure that I'm very clear on what I'm offering to people, what my mission is, and attracting the right people that align to that. And I remember one time when I have a Maven course that's on growth design, which is my background, but it's also growth design from like a conscious perspective. So how do we create responsible business growth and really be aware of like the potential negative consequences that we as designers might have for the world, for people and the planet, for our users, for the business, for the environment, and so forth. So really being clear about that, but yeah, just kind of creating content that really like shares that story with people and make sure that I'm attracting the right people. Because I remember when I first posted on LinkedIn about the course and the launch or something, it got a ton of comments, which was incredible. But there was also someone who, like, I think kind of focused on the fact that I said this course is not for everyone. It's for the people who are ready to take action. And it's like, actually, even though I'm like a content creator, we're not trying to trick you. I don't want you to take my course if you're not the right candidate for that, if you're going to take it and be unhappy with it. So it's like it is really about product market fit or customer market fit, right? We're trying to find the right people.
right.
And the way that we do that now is through platforms that are social channels, whether that's LinkedIn, which I really like because it's more professional. And I think people are highly engaged there in bettering their career if they're on LinkedIn, or other channels like TikTok, which are now apparently getting banned. Uh, I hear mixed things. So I don't know if the ban is happening this weekend because the current
Sunday.
administration kicked it down the line to the next administration, who is now saying, I think TikTok CEO said that they're working with the incoming president to do some sort of agreement or extension. So it like the message is very mixed. But anyways, as a creator, I definitely plan to download all of my content. And, I do live in the Netherlands for most of the year. So I can switch it to my Dutch phone, but it's like if Americans aren't on the platform and that's, my primary audience, I don't think I necessarily want to continue an effort there. And since my YouTube channel got deleted, I want to make a big effort to grow the new one. And that means posting things that is not just the podcast.
Yeah, it's supposed to be on Sunday, I heard. And I
Yeah.
feel like Trump is just kind of like waiting for see how much money he can get out of ByteDance to,
Mm,
reverse that, unfortunately. But yeah, I
yeah.
think for now it's a Xiaohongshu for most people. And
小红书.
yeah, yeah, it's just hilarious. I open it up every once in a while. I count the number of
Yeah.
white people I see on it. I'm like, oh, this, like welcome,
Yeah.
welcome everyone, welcome to Xiaohongshu. Like a white person telling me that they're welcoming me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the irony is strong.
I yes, I played your voice note out loud and my mom and my aunt were there next to me in Oahu and we were laughing because it was so funny to hear you saying that as you open the app you're seeing like not Chinese people. And I do know that a lot of Chinese people are actually upset about the amount of like Westerners coming onto the platform. So I'm curious what your genuine thoughts are about that.
Uh, Fortunately, I'm not a Chinese citizen, so I can be a little bit more unfiltered with this. I don't really care because I actually don't use the app at all. I only went on
Mm,
it several months ago because my friend, who's Chinese, has her business on it.
yeah.
And I just wanted to see what it was about because she said, oh, it was really big in China. You should consider doing this for UX as well. But I'm like, my Chinese is
Mm,
kind of like crappy. I'm not really going to be able to do much with it. And even if I build up an audience, like, what do I do with that? Just like make money off sponsorships? Actually, that's not a bad idea, right? But
mm,
so I opened it again just because there's been like so much social media talk over it. I just want to see what it
yeah.
looked like. And it's like night and day because I remember like 4 or 5 months ago, I opened it up and it's like a very Chinese app.
Mm,
I mean, the user interface is still in Chinese. I don't know how Americans are somehow navigating that without understanding a lick of Chinese, but well, actually, I think I know how because I cannot read Chinese. But when I went back to China, I was using their Uber clone called Didi. And even though I
mm,
can't understand any of the words, I knew exactly how to book my ride and also upgrade it because
mm,
it used the same similar user interface as Uber does. So I
yeah.
know so they have like different types of cars. And I was like, oh, this car looks fancier for only like $10 more. Oh yeah, I'll pick that one for I know that's like the DD version of Uber Black or something.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Americans are doing right now as they navigate the app. Even though Chinese apps, just the UI structure is
Yeah.
entirely different. It's just like let's cram everything in there as much as possible.
Right.
And right now when I look at it, it's just like it's so American.
Mm,
And they're all saying like, everyone come join us, welcome TikTok refugees, which I'm just like, that's such an offensive term in many ways. And
mm,
then like 1 out of 10 or 20 posts is like one Chinese person saying
yeah.
TikTok refugees get out. I'm like, yes,
Okay, so
resistance.
I haven't seen that on Xiaohongshu, but I have seen it on TikTok that people are posting videos. Like Chinese people are saying that they're not very happy about these people coming on. It's mixed, obviously. Like some people are really excited about the cross-cultural exchange, and some people are like, hey, I have some concerns and reservations here about what would have happened if it were the other way around. And it was, a flood of Chinese people coming on to TikTok, even though that's not an American app. But, so I get it
Yeah.
both ways. I don't know how. I've been on Xiaohongshu for like 4 days now, I think. And I just grew like really quickly and it was kind of offensive because I was like, I think Chinese people like me more. Like
Uh,
they know I'm Japanese. I don't know what happened, but I will say that on TikTok it took me a lot of effort to get the amount of followers that I have now. And I think TikTok's algorithm is a lot stricter about you having to post like 3 times a day, which I just,
yeah.
to be honest, do not have time for. Like creating content, especially video content, is so time consuming.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult and time consuming to create content around a business. Like if you're just kind of like screwing around and just like trying to get laughs or like have fun,
Yeah.
then you can do like three
Yeah.
times a day. But if you're like consciously thinking about how this piece of content is going to create or
Yeah.
grow your business, that's like on a different level.
Yeah.
But look, I'm actually
So for people watching, so I was asking Hang about how to pronounce certain things, I think, right, in Mandarin. And he told me, just make sure you don't tell people that you're Japanese. And I was like, oh, it's too late. I've already shared that.
yeah, there's a lot of historical animosity
Yeah.
that the Chinese and Koreans have against Japanese people because of World War
Yes.
II and just how there
Yeah.
hasn't been a lot of, well, there has been some apologies, but they just keep
Hmm.
revisiting Yasukuni Shrine. I'm just like,
Yeah.
folks, just stop, just consider not doing that for a few years. But
I don't think the government didn't apologize though, right? Have they
uh,
issued a formal apology?
they claim that they did, and that the Chinese government took a form of reparation as a form of apology. And I think, there are issues on both sides because I do feel like the Chinese government tries to, lean into that because it
Mm,
creates more. It's basic propaganda at this point. Like, did Japan screw up massively? Yes. Did Japan do enough to, you know, pay reparations? compared
Hmm.
to, I would say, World War II Germany. No, hell no, right? Like that's on a whole different level. But at the same time, it's just like both sides are kind of, fuck, I should stop before I get canceled by one of them. But it's, yeah, it's messed up. I would say I remember reading it when I was younger about like the R word of Nanking, and I'm like, this is
Yeah.
really really messed up. This was traumatizing. I was like, I cannot
Yeah.
get over this for several years, and and I just feel like I do feel like Chinese government like kind of milks it a bit, and not for the right reasons. Like if you really want to
Mm,
get Japan to like do things a little bit better, this is probably not the right way to go about it. And I feel like a lot of times they're just trying to consolidate their own power, their own popularity.
yeah.
Whereas, I wonder if the average Chinese netizen is fully aware of just like what is happening,
Hmm.
as opposed to just being fed a lot of like angry material, which they should be angry about, but at the same time, it's like, I don't, there's a lot of hatred, and
Yeah.
such a complex thing. And I honestly probably am not really prepared or the right person to talk about it, but I've definitely experienced it. And I feel like part of why they might really like you right now is because you are doing your best to learn Chinese. And I think Chinese people like love it when
Mm,
non Chinese people learn the language and just like attempt and try it. And
yeah.
perhaps they also like kind of see you as more of a white person or more as an American as well. So that's just my guess.
Yeah. That could be. I mean, my name is in Japanese kanji on the app, which maybe on second thought, like I will update to my name. But yeah, okay, very touchy subject to talk about, right? And I think in
Yeah.
so many ways it's hard to navigate this conversation in the attempts of doing justice to everything that happened and trying to say the right thing and get the conversation right and convey everything that we feel about it in one go, because it is a very sensitive topic. But these things did happen, obviously, and I have also experienced this. Like, I don't know, it's weird because it's like all the people, like Western people, can kind of lump Asians together if they're not familiar with the culture and just think like Eastern Asians are all kind of similar or the same, right? If you're not familiar with the culture. But within that, you have like Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans all sort of disliking each other to some extent, at least the older generations. I don't want to
Yeah.
generalize and say everyone, right? But it's like, it is kind of like that. And, I've been hanging out with friends where like I had my best friends in high school were Korean, and I love Koreans. They're great. I don't have beef against anyone, just to be clear. But yeah, I do think that this was Japan's history and it's not okay. But I also think that we, as the current generation, have a responsibility to acknowledge everything that happened and to move forward from it and not bring that discrimination with us into the future and to hand that off to our kids and say, you continue the hate, that came from whatever happened in our history. Like, it's important to teach history, right? And for people to be aware of what happened, but not to sort of take it on as your own. So I think there's like healing that needs to be done there. But I have been in scenarios where people kind of forget that I'm Japanese or something, and like a friend of a friend who was Korean said something hateful against Japanese right in front of me, and I was like, cool.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. And that it happens, like, of course, behind closed doors, but yeah, it is what it is. But my approach is not to perpetuate that.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I think it's such a
Your
delicate.
dog agrees.
Yeah, he's angry right now, but it's such a difficult topic because I feel like a lot of Japanese people do feel like, I'm of a generation that has absolutely nothing to do with this,
Yeah.
and I don't agree with what our government did or said and how
Mm,
they're navigating this process. But at the same
hmm.
time, like how do you how do you move on from that? And I think that's the tough part.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let him down.
Yeah. I think it happens on every level. I think it happens at the individual level where we each need to sort of acknowledge what happened, and, be aware of that, but also again, not carry it on to future generations or perpetuate the hate or discrimination that happens. But then I also think it needs to happen on sort of an organizational, governmental level, right? Where we're very clear on repairing relationships and also acknowledging what has happened in the past.
Yeah, I just don't see that happening. Like it's so unfortunate, but it doesn't feel like either government is trying really hard to repair that. And if anything, it's like they're just leveraging it to further their own agendas. And
Mm,
it's just so unfortunate that like folks like you or me, I mean, we're, like pretty American at this point, but I think we still like lean into our cultural heritage.
totally.
And it's just hard for us to kind of like navigate that because, yeah, there are just a lot of folks out there who still
Yeah,
really hold on tightly to that and they'll say
right.
and think things that I don't know if it's very fair at all.
Mhm.
So,
Well, yeah, I think that's right. I think what TikTok sort of exemplifies is that people don't necessarily agree with their government, right? Like the reason that everyone is going to Xiaohongshu after the TikTok ban is because they all disagree, and it's a it's what 170 million Americans on TikTok or something, and in the first 2 days, 700,000 Americans went to Xiaohongshu, and then it's the top app globally for some countries. Like there's a bunch of people in the UK joining. I saw it's the top app in South Africa. So I think we're seeing some sort of like global camaraderie where people are just tired of fighting against each other, or they want something different essentially. And I'm not saying that joining Xiaohongshu and maybe disrupting Chinese culture in the app is the right way to go about it, which is why I tried to do everything. Like I haven't posted much, but and I'm also like, do I stay on here or do I not? Because now I'm starting to see videos of people, kind of saying like they don't want the culture of the app to change, which is respectable. But everything I posted so far has been in Mandarin, and maybe that is why people are like, because people have been so nice to me and even to my mom, and they're like, "Hi, Auntie, we wish you like a happy New Year and like prosperity for your family and whatnot." Or people are like, "Your mom is so elegant." So I have not been on the receiving end of any hate on Xiaohongshu for sure.
yeah, I'm just scared of social media outside of LinkedIn. Anything that doesn't have our names attached to it. I just feel like it can quickly devolve. But I think right now, like people are very, very open about this so far. I think
Mm,
it's been really nice. I don't know how long it's going to last, and also just
yeah.
how long people will actually stay in Xiaohongshu. It just seems
Mm,
really odd that we're leaving TikTok to go to an app that's just as much controlled by by a Chinese company and with questionable
yeah.
ties to the Chinese government. So how is the data privacy any better? I
Yeah,
not
I
there.
don't think that that is what the move is about. Because the
Yeah,
banning or
true.
censorship of TikTok is about censoring free speech, essentially, right? Like they don't want the people on TikTok are pretty left, if we're honest. Like so, there's a certain dialogue happening on TikTok that probably doesn't happen on X and probably doesn't happen on LinkedIn, especially because it's a very professional network, where I think people focus more on their careers and less on, yeah, less on things like this that's sort of a bit more political. So I think the move towards Xiaohongshu is more about saying I disagree with what my own government is doing, and not about let me continue posting on a social app that fits. Because you're right, like it is censored, so you wouldn't even say that that's like a preservation of free speech either.
Yeah, that's true. And I want to go to donations for just one moment. We just have
Yes,
$50 coming from Amy Parnas and also 100 from Casey Jones, 50
Amy,
from Tom Takigayama. Thank you so much. We're at 200 for this episode. That's really awesome. Thank you, everyone.
awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you,
please,
everyone.
folks, donate if you can. The QR code in the bottom right will take you to the donation page. We'll also have the link in the comments, which I have to add. But, Sarah, I feel like every time we chat, we always talk about really fun, interesting things, but it's always like
Mm.
100 miles away from our original target.
Yeah,
We're always just like, oh, let's just talk
the
about
conversation just devolves into
yeah, let's talk about World War II like crimes. against
Yeah.
humanity and how that affects us nowadays. Totally has to
Who
do with
else is going to
design.
talk about it?
Not on LinkedIn. That's just a weird place to talk about it, but here we are.
Here we are.
Do you see that? So, do you follow Elena Vernas? She's like a big growth like
Yes.
PLG person on LinkedIn, and then somebody like tagged her on a post about Dropbox. Apparently, like this person, their data had exceeded Dropbox's limit under like the free plan or on the lowest level plan, and
Hmm.
they had to go to this page to either upgrade or to extract all their files and go elsewhere.
Hmm.
And the page that this user went to was basically a bunch of options with very little information to say you can upgrade this, or upgrade this, and here's the best
Hmm.
value. So what level do you want to upgrade to? But we're not really going to tell you how much it costs yet. And there's
Oh,
no option to just close your account and pull out all your data and use another option. So it's like a really, really poor user experience. And then they tag
hmm.
Elena Vernas on it, which, it happens, I guess, because, she's repping Dropbox these days. But I thought it was really interesting how she responded, which was super professional. But she's like, we did a lot of
Hmm.
testing, like a lot of growth testing, and this was the end result. And we tried to test away from it, and we couldn't. And because we're under a lot of pressure right now due to just like our earnings and like we can't make enough money, basically, we had no choice but to continue showcase using this tool or using this interface, this flow, because it was making a lot of money for us. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, that's like such a prime example of how growth hacking or growth design just like kind of takes us to this really bad place.
Yeah.
Like, how does that? First, I just want I want your thoughts around this. I wish I showed you the link
Yes.
earlier.
So I am not super familiar with Elena. Like I do, I want to say I'm subscribed to her newsletter. I'm aware of her, but I'm just not super familiar with her background or her work. I think the stuff that I have seen that she puts out is great. This is not the kind of growth design that I teach because if it has an impact like that where it's manipulative or deceptive to customers and users, then my approach is not to do it, right? Like if you need to manipulate users into taking an action. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is what Dropbox is doing because I haven't seen that post or what the design is of the UI. But if you need to take a manipulative action to get your users to convert to a paid customer, then perhaps that business shouldn't exist, you know? So that's kind of my approach to things is if you're putting profit above people or if you're putting profit above the environment, then that is the use case that needs to be like looked at, right? My approach is not to take those kind of steps in order to continue to profit. If you're not profiting, then maybe that's a good signal that the product needs to shift and that the product hasn't evolved enough to keep up with the pace of the current market and competitors.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It just feels like it's so hard to do that sometimes within companies
Yeah,
where there is a lot of business pressure to,
yeah.
perform to make money. And it sounds like that flow was has been there for a while now.
Hmm.
And it's something that they can't even get rid of, even though internally they probably know that this does not create a good user experience. But
Yeah,
anyway, that's my sad
yeah.
attempt to steer us back into design
No,
conversations.
that's great. So I have done user interviews before with customers where they felt manipulated into, or so the example I'm thinking of is the guy wasn't aware that he would actually be charged in that step. When he put in his credit card info, he thought it was sort of a trial. So it's like, I think we need to be very clear with people because what happens is you then hurt customer trust and they will not come back to you. Like then you've shot your shot and you've lost, you know? So it's like
Yeah.
I think it's more about preserving customer loyalty and trust and creating incredible products. And that's product led growth and not about how do we trick people into upgrading.
Yeah.
That's my short take. I do agree with you. It's very tricky, especially if you're like, a company with board members and investors and you're not financially performing well and there are certain expectations or you're public or what have you. So those situations are definitely tricky. And that's why I would say when you're just getting started with your company, get the right investors who are going to back that vision and those kind of ethics that you have.
I see. So
That's
how
really important.
I'm actually really curious now, like on that topic, you are investing in a lot of climate tech startups as well as material
Yes.
startups. How did you get into that? Like, what's the process like?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the biggest ways that we can have an impact is by putting our money where our mouth is, basically. And so for me, I was like, well, I want to integrate this and entirely change the craft so that I'm focused on this problem. And whether that's with clients or with educating other technologists, like that's great. But how can I go a step further? And what are the opportunities here? Because sometimes when we think of things like climate change, there's obviously a very negative connotation, right? Like in 2024, it was the hottest year on record. We've passed that 1.5 Celsius limit that, scientists tried to set with the Paris Agreement. So it's not going well. And that can be quite heavy for people because individually they can feel powerless as to how they can have an impact on the system, since it's a massive systemic problem. For me, I was like, well, we are essentially kind of the 1% in the world, you and I and people that work in tech, right? And I'm, not saying that I'm like a millionaire or something, but we make enough money where how we spend our money has a financial impact on the system. And so for me, it was about putting my money into the future that I want to build. So putting your energy, your thoughts, your efforts, your actions, and your money into the type of thing that you want to grow in the world. And that's when I was looking into how do I sort of angel invest in these companies because I don't have the background to become a venture capitalist, right? Like I've worked in tech and sometimes that happens down the line. And to be honest, that was something that I thought maybe would come in the future is, starting my own company and then maybe becoming a VC because that's a common path for people.
Yeah.
But at this point, I thought angel investing was more appropriate, which is where you just invest, right? Like a small amount of money typically. And I think there's a common misconception there where people think, well, if I'm going to invest in a company, I need to invest thousands of dollars or millions of dollars even, because that's what VCs do. But that's actually not the case. And so if you're an angel investor, you can literally just put 1,000 US dollars towards whatever you're investing in. It depends which group you're a part of, which syndicate you're a part of, but I joined a group called Climate Insiders, which is led by Johan Berno, and that is out of Berlin. And so it's a mixed group. Like there's Europeans, there's Americans, and they basically help by kind of sussing out the deal first and using their
Hmm.
network because he has a background in VC.
I
And so
see.
his mission is to accelerate this with hardware specifically, because that's where we're going to see the biggest impact and the biggest change with climate.
Which company or product are you most excited about that you've invested in recently?
Oh, that's a tough one. There,
Yeah.
so yeah, again, because I don't have a background in this, right? Each time an opportunity comes across my desk, I am kind of learning about most of those technologies for the first time. Uh, what's been interesting is to see a lot of application, I guess, with fungi or mushrooms. So one of the companies I invested in uses mushroom technology essentially to break down waste from textile materials and makeup, even. And I think something that can kind of get overlooked is like, where does the trash go, right?
Yeah.
We're consuming and we're creating so much trash, and it's not circular design because it just kind of ends up in a landfill. Where I am on Maui, it literally just gets dumped on the earth and then sits there and decays for hundreds of years. So, like, the trash isn't magically like disappearing. And this application was really interesting to me. And they have a partnership with L'Oreal, so they already have some really big companies involved in evaluating like how do we kind of degrade materials from makeup, for example, in a
Yeah.
sustainable way. So that's been really interesting. But the latest one that I did was also kind of fungi based, and it was for leather. So they're
Oh, cool.
creating fabric, yeah, to replace leather. So instead of cows, you actually have fabric that is created from mushrooms.
That's so interesting. I feel like the defense that most leather companies give is that those cows were already used for other materials like meat, and
Yeah,
that leather it was just gonna come out anyway. So you're just getting
yeah,
free leather out of the deal. But it's all not taking into consideration just the kind of chemicals you need to use to, in order to
hmm,
create leather out of animal skin. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty random, but I'm excited about that because I went through a phase last year of like getting rid of any plastic in my wardrobe. And this is really challenging because everything is made of polyester, which is
Yeah.
plastic. And so yeah, I try to be pretty like conscious of the materials that I buy as well, and that it will last and be durable. And when you're shopping, you kind of look through like the fabrics and everything is like 50%, 100% polyester. So it's kind of disappointing because it's like, why would I pay $200 for plastic?
We're paying for the style and the design and the marketing that goes behind this brand and product. So,
Yeah, yeah. So that's something that I try to be pretty aware of now is like materials and longevity and, selling things. I just went through my closet this weekend for the LA fires to think about like, just what can I give? What can I send over? Because people were talking about sending over clothes. But what's interesting about the LA fire that kind of comes back to this like climate tech stuff is the climate tech industry is projected to hit 1.5 billion this year. And so it's yeah, it's growing massively off obviously, and that's why I also talk about this being an opportunity and not just like we're growing something new and that's going to solve the problems and each of us can do something unique in a specific area that is relevant to our interests. But with the Maui fires that happened in August of 2023, people are still displaced from that. And so when we're talking about the LA fires happening now, the cameras have gone away from the Maui fires a long time ago, but the community has not recovered. There's people, that can no longer stay in the hotels that, have moved off island because they just can't afford it. They can't afford to rebuild. There's people that were waiting for their insurance money for a long time. And there's people that are now living in containers that have been shipped here in dirt lots, which is literally like when you drive to Target, kind of, there's like a dirt lot and
yeah.
there's people displaced that are living there. So I would love to see more. And, again, not an expert in this area, but I do think that there are ways that we can prepare for these climate disasters better and also the after effects. And that's why, I posted about this on TikTok or like whenever I create videos. And I get disappointed when I see people saying like, well, there's nothing we could do, because I think that's such a cop out. It's like there's always something that you can do. And that's kind of my attitude towards life. But there are things like parametric insurance that are being developed now in the climate industry, which is like instead of waiting to assess the whole situation for 1 year and then you get your money to rebuild your house, let's say, when certain thresholds are crossed, like wind or temperature, you immediately get that payout. And startups right now, like Series A and B, are developing this for businesses. But I would love to see that happen for individuals because when you buy a house often and you have a mortgage, you're forced to get insurance. So I think we're going to see a big change in the insurance market. And it's going to need to change, right? Like you can't have companies in LA pulling out before the fires where people have paid into for
Yeah.
the entire duration of their house and then not get the insurance payout because they said, oh, sorry, we're not insuring you anymore. So we need very clear like rules and regulations around this. And I think we also need to make sure that we're getting people back on their feet quicker.
Yeah. I think we have like very deep problems in our government right now when it comes to regulations that allows our companies and just corporations to just get away with this kind of stuff. Like it makes zero
Yeah.
sense. We privatized everything
Yeah.
and under the guise of, more competition, capitalism, and it's just created such a crappy system for people.
Yeah.
Crap. We only have like only a few minutes left.
Okay.
I feel like we always get into like really interesting topics. I do kind of want to ask, like, you're going into areas where it's further and further away from visual or digital design. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel like that's happening? You're becoming almost more like not an industrial designer, but like more traditional product designer, or perhaps you're going away from digital and tech and more into materials, goods,
Mm.
products, physical products.
This is a really good question. So I don't know what I will be, in
Yeah.
Dan Mall's words, when I grow up. Like, I love that Dan said that on my podcast. He was like, I want, when I grow up, I want to be. And I was like, oh, that's such a great way of putting it. Right now, I'm going into a space where I am creating things based off of what I want to see in the world and what I can offer. And I don't have a clear summit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what the summit looks like. I just know that I'm building towards it. And I think in many ways that can be very scary for people, but it's also very exciting because the careers that we will see develop in our lifetime don't exist right now. And that's, I think, something that I'm building towards. And I also think that people get too fixed on titles and fixing themselves into like a specific industry instead of following their interests.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm headed. I do not do physical product design. So that's probably a good like thing to point out. The things that I do are really as an investor and as an advisor from that perspective, like how do we evaluate people who get funding? What do you need to do if you want to get funding? How do you convey that story as a founder? Um, and what does that deck look like? Oh, sorry, did I freeze?
No,
Um,
you're good.
yeah, so, and that's where the growth skills that I have really come in handy. But you're right, that is more strategic and it's a lot more about getting that product market fit and
Yeah.
then how do you grow the company? And I do have the design skills for that, but you're right that I'm not very actively doing visuals right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to point out we've got another $25 donation from Courtney Wong. Thank you so much, Courtney. We're only
Thank
$4
you.
away from $20,000, which is amazing. Thank you, everyone who's
Yes.
donated. If you're able to help us bridge that last gap into the $20,000 territory, that'd be amazing. You'd be the person who help us
Pushes
do
us
that.
over.
Yeah, to
Yes.
$20,000. That's a big, nice round number. So, folks, if you're able to donate, please do so. We got a few more minutes left of this episode, and it would be very much appreciated by both of us. So, links are in the comment section as well as the QR code in the bottom right. So please donate if you're able to. Thank you so much. Only $4 away from
Yeah.
$20,000.
Oh, Hang, I wanted to share this, and we haven't discussed this beforehand,
What?
but I wanted to do a giveaway to someone
Oh,
that donates. So, uh, for anyone that's interested in taking my conscious growth design course on Maven for the February cohort, if you donate for this episode, then I would love to, we'll pick someone random and we'll do a giveaway. Uh, and that comes at a good time actually because the course has evolved a lot. So I'm about to, working with Maven, increase the price of the course.
sorry. You're supposed to announce this early on in the during the episode.
I apologize.
We got we're like negative 2 minutes left. So can we prolong this a little bit by like over the weekend perhaps or for the next
Yeah.
episode?
There's no time pressure,
Yeah, this is so
but
kind of you.
we'll pick someone random who donates and then we'll do a giveaway.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate that. That's a really big and awesome bonus gift. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anything to help out.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna sign off at this point because I have another break before I talk on the next episode. So thank you everyone who joined in today. Thank you everyone who's donated. Courtney, Amy, Casey, and Tom. Thank you all. We're so close. Oh, so we're over $200 for this episode, and we're only
Amazing.
$4 away from $20,000. So super cool. I hope to all catch you off, folks, soon because we're gonna have at least one or two more episodes. And yeah, this has been a marathon. So I'm signing off. So see you
Okay.
all. And thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate
Thank you
your
so
coming
much
on
for everyone
today.
for joining. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.